It occurred to me when I was reading this reading to prepare for today that, we sometimes think that the other 9 lepers who didn't return to Jesus were just so callous that they didn't bother to return to thank Jesus. And I began to wonder about that because leprosy was such a devastating thing to have. I mean, to be relieved of it would have been extraordinary. To be relieved of the restrictions that were associated with leprosy. So I wondered about that, and I realized in the passage here, it said that on their way to show themselves to the priest, they were healed. And one of them realized that they were healed. And he's the one who came back. And I thought, that puts a different slant on things, The realization, after so much time of being isolated, realizing that the conditions of the isolation were now relieved. And that perhaps the other 9 were going through 2 things. One is they didn't immediately realize it. And secondly, they weren't considered truly relieved of the restriction until they presented themselves to the priest and the priest declared them healed. And so in their minds, the healing was probably not complete. At least the restrictions attached to the healing were not complete. And so they became so focused on finally being free of this disease that they just wanted to be done with it. That they had so many other concerns, they had so many other things they wanted to accomplish. They had so many things that their newfound freedom would permit them to do that they weren't allowed to do. Just get to the priest and then be relieved of this burden. So much so that they didn't realize that they already had the freedom. They already had the freedom from this disease. And that puts a different slant on things. And really, one of the reasons I consider that is because of our current experience with this COVID-19 pandemic. We went through months and months and months of isolation, months and months and months of restrictions. Not even the same kind of restrictions that these lepers went through. I mean, you talk about isolation and restriction. Those guys had severe isolation and restriction. You know how crazy we were going over the couple of months where we experienced those restrictions. Imagine something even more restrictive than that, and then looking at the rest of your life that way. And trying to survive in the midst of that, trying to do the things of everyday, ordinary life in the midst of that, which became increasingly difficult for them, became increasingly difficult for us. It was tough for us to go to the store. There was no entertainment out there. We all were stuck in our houses watching TV and listening to music. We couldn't see our family and our friends. To this day, people who have COVID are in hospitals, isolated, and can't see their loved ones. How much more so when we were in the midst of this pandemic? People died daily without being able to say goodbye to their loved ones, without their loved ones being able to say goodbye to them. I buried any number of COVID victims during that pandemic. I can't tell you what the experience was like in any kind of adequate way. I remember particularly this one family, their son died of cancer 40 years old. There was mother, father, and 8 people allowed at the cemetery. And everybody had to keep their distance. I mean, I'm not a huggy guy. Most of you know that. I'm just not a big hugger. But in those kinds of circumstances, I at least try to hug the mother. Couldn't do it. And became very much aware of that barrier in that moment. This grieving mother standing at her son's grave without anyone having the ability to reach out and comfort her in that moment. Oh, we had barriers and we had restrictions. And once things began to open up, boy, we were about getting out there and doing whatever we had to do. And how many of us really took a moment to say thank you? You know, we were so contained, so isolated, so restricted, that man, when things started to open up, people just went out and tried to make things as normal as they possibly could all over again. How much thought was given to a thank you in that moment? We just wanted to go. We got caught up in life again. There was life for us out there, and bam, we were on our way. Do we pause for a thank you? You know, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say it. We opened up the churches again. Where are the people? After having the freedom restored to them, being able to get out, where are the people? We have 40% fewer people coming to give praise and worship to God on a Sunday. They're out there. They're like free. They're unrestricted. So those 9 guys were doing. They're trying to get their freedom. They're trying to get to the priest to get the final say-so and get out there and do whatever they could do after those years of restriction. Seems to me, in my reflection, that it's kind of a normal thing, part of the human nature. But on this day that's specifically designated as a day to give thanks, we're here to give thanks. To give thanks to God. I hope we're here to give thanks for getting through the experience. I hope we're here to give thanks for the relief of so many restrictions. I find today, more than ever, there are a lot of angry people in the world. There are a lot of angry people in our world. And we're angry about all kinds of different things. We're angry about things that probably not very many people have really the ability to do anything about. You know, everybody's angry about the lack of things because of the supply chain. You know, and we're angry about that. We want to blame somebody. You can't do anything about that if you don't have truck drivers and if you don't have people in factories doing the work and you don't have people able to do the deliveries, you don't have people in the stores to sell. Can't do anything about it if those conditions aren't met. And it's a very complicated thing. We want to be angry about it. We're angry about gasoline right now. Gasoline is so complicated. everybody thinks, well, we just snap a finger and gasoline all of a sudden is available. Gas is such a complicated process. And it depends on all kinds of things. And one of the things it depends on is the supply chain. One of the things it depends on is refinement. People working in the refineries to refine it. One of the things it depends on is supply. And we had a huge supply of it. And then all of a sudden everybody got out and we didn't have a huge supply anymore. And nobody foresaw that. But we want to blame somebody. We want to blame the politicians. We want to blame the companies, the corporations. And we want to be angry about it. We are very angry people. And when you're angry, it's very difficult to be thankful. Because your emotion is all caught up in these things over here and over here. And I'm saying, we got to put that junk aside. We've gone through our isolation. We've gone through our restrictions. We have our freedoms. They've been restored to us in so many ways. And rather than look at all the negative stuff that we want to hold on to, there has to be a moment where we can be thankful for what we have.
That's right. I say that every day.
We've got to be thankful for what we have. And that's what this day is about. We got about half the crowd here that we normally get on Thanksgiving Day. I'm hoping some people will watch from home and hear the same message. That today is a day to give thanks to God. A day to give thanks to God for releasing us, for relieving us, for restoring us, for bringing us to this moment, to this end, to this part of the end of the COVID pandemic. It's not over yet. I know that, you know that. It's not over yet. But we certainly are in a much different place and a much better place than we were beforehand. And so rather than being like the 9 that got caught up in all the things that they wanted to do and needed to do in order to feel like they were right again, we need to be like the 1 who said, I've been healed. I've been healed. And now I can give thanks for that.